This morning we're going to talk about inconsistent schedule and what that leads to, what it can lead to, some of the ways that it may happen. I'm going to give you an example of that in the video that you're going to watch. Generally, it's things that are, the word is right on the tip of my tongue. It's things that aren't really meant to happen. Like, we're just going about life. We're living our life, and we're not necessarily always looking at it through the lens of being a steward to our dog. So things can come up and happen that can make our schedule inconsistent when we really didn't necessarily want it that way. So as we go through and talk about this, I certainly don't want to imply that there's not a variety of reasons that schedules can become inconsistent or change. What I do want to try to get across is that no one else is in charge of our schedule. No one yes, we have jobs, so we have to attend to that, but there isn't anybody going around telling you what you're supposed to be doing with your time. You are the master of that ship. So I just want to encourage everyone that if this is something that you have struggled with, so let me use an example. Let's say that you have a job that you work at pretty consistent hours throughout the week, and then on the weekend you really, really like to sleep in until 10 o'clock. Well, that within itself isn't really that big of a deal, right? Well, what happens when it causes a problem for your dog? And your dog starts having all of these undesirable behaviors or negative side effects, I guess we could say, as a result of being in relationship with someone that is not consistent. I'm going to let that sit there for just a minute. I want you to think about a time that you have been so desperately in love and dependent upon somebody, and they were inconsistent as fuck with you, and how that felt. Let that just settle in for a second. What that's called, you guys, is intermittent reinforcement. It doesn't matter if the intention was something else. The impact is intermittent reinforcement. And intermittent reinforcement is incredibly damaging to the psyche of a sentient being. There's been lots of studies about it, but predominantly they've been able to show in rats mostly that if you provide rats with a giant lever, well, it doesn't need to be giant, they're rats, with a lever, and some of the rats push the lever and every single time cocaine comes out. Some of the rats push the lever and every single time nothing happens. Some of the rats push the lever and sometimes cocaine comes out. And it's not sometimes on a fixed ratio. It's just completely random. They have no way. So what happens? Well, the rats that nothing comes out, they're like, obviously that lever doesn't do anything, so I'm not going to continue to waste my time there. The rats that had continuous amounts of cocaine, they just eventually stopped pushing the lever all the time. There were other rats around them. They have community. They eventually just got so saturated with it that they just didn't want to do it anymore. But then the group of rats that had access to pushing the lever and it just being random, they just became obsessed. They couldn't stop thinking about it. They didn't, is it this time? Is it this time? Is it this time I push the lever and it's going to come out? And just as a person who's had a cocaine addiction, I can tell you it's an unpleasant experience, right? Your mind is already fixed on what's happening because you put cocaine in your body and the addiction, the mental addiction that comes with that. But when you don't know how I can't imagine going to the drug dealer and giving him money for like cocaine and then him sometimes giving it to me and that being an okay thing. That would make it much, much worse. You got to start thinking about things like this. I had to put myself in scenarios where that had been done to me. So eventually I got into one of those relationships where somebody was providing an inconsistent schedule of reinforcement, because we have to recognize that anytime we're with our dogs, that's reinforcement. We're all that they have. And so our affection, our eye contact, our attention, our good boys and good girls, those are forms of reinforcement. And it's really one of the few types of reinforcement that they have access to, because they're not, out in the world developing relationships and community. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have that. So if you think about it in terms of each time that I interact with my dog, if there's an inconsistency in the way that I'm doing it, even in just my schedule, if every day I get up and walk you in the morning and you count on that as part of the helping you function, and then I just up and decide I'm going to sleep in until 10 o'clock with no adjustments, I can't tell you, right? I can't explain to you why I'm doing it. I just do it. Once a month, twice a month, that's probably not that big of a deal. But when you do things all the time that are inconsistent, or you struggle with consistency in your own schedule and keeping up a schedule and being disciplined about the things that you're doing that maintain success in your life, if you struggle with that, I can almost bet that your dog has some form of separation anxiety. I can almost guarantee that if there's inconsistency in your life and the way that you're dealing with your dog, and you kind of just get to your dog, which that's a place that many of us have been, myself included. That's not a judgment. If you get to your dog because you kind of have to, it's like, I came home from work and now I got to do all this stuff. I got to make sure I walk my dog. I got to make sure I do this. And then you don't, and then you do, and then you don't, and there's no way for your dog to predict what's going to happen. That's how separation anxiety is born. And for me, as a professional dog trainer, but also as a relationship coach and a person who's been helping people recover for over a decade, I can tell you that the majority of things this is opinion, the majority of things that people say about separation anxiety is inaccurate. This push for separation anxiety to be a genetic problem, isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient? Separation anxiety occurs due to circumstance. It occurs due to a reinforcement schedule. It occurs due to the strength of the relationship, the consistency of the relationship. It's not something that just happens because my dog has a genetic predisposition to separation anxiety. My children have a genetic predisposition to addiction and alcoholism. For generations. That's not what makes you an alcoholic or addict. Escaping reality and having some sort of thing happen in your life where your survival, a lot of things, we know that, your survival tactic becomes disconnection and escaping from reality. That's how that happens. It's not because our genes magically start firing fucking alcoholism. No. If you grow up in a family where you're able to practice healthy behaviors, healthy cycles, you don't escape, you don't disconnect, you know how to be in relationship, it doesn't matter what your genetics are. We're going to talk about that more on a different day, a lot more about it. But I just want to encourage everybody to take charge of what you're responsible for. Genetics, blaming things on some sort of, he's got separation anxiety because of this. The likelihood is that your dog has separation anxiety because it is freaked the fuck out because it doesn't understand what's going to happen. And that causes things. Let me give you an example. And then we're going to look at a video. This is a big topic, so I'm going to talk about it a lot over the time. Let me give you an example. Let's get back. So the dog that follows you into the bathroom, the dog that follows you into your room, the little Velcro dogs, and everybody thinks, they're just doing that because they have to be with me all the time. I don't know that that's what that is. I think that your dog is desperately wanting to be, let's just talk about me. I think that my dog, when he does that, is desperately wanting to be included in my life, and he's afraid that I'm going to leave him. And so what happens is people say, well, that's separation anxiety because he doesn't want to be separated from you. Why would he not want to be separated from me? Because it's in his nature to not want to be. So now we're demonizing the very thing we love most about dogs. Dogs are supposed to be cognizant of where you are and kind of following you around everywhere. And if it's a little bit too much for you, you can do things to help give you a little bit more space and separation, the same that you can with children. But if my child wants to be clingy and is sort of, I'm going to ask him what's going on. Hey, buddy, you seem a little bit like you need mom a lot today. Is there something going on? Most likely the answer is yes. It's not, no, my genetics are just firing, causing me to have separation anxiety from you. I mean, yeah, I'm his mom. There's a genetic component there. There's a, like maybe, I don't know how you'd say, like maybe a biochemical component there. There's that. So I don't want to ignore that. But all of this stuff absolves us from responsibility. All of it. Every single thing. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's that. But where's my part? So everything happening to this dog has everything to do with everything else except for me. Right? That makes a lot of sense. So I steward, I feed, I shelter, I provide literally all of this being's access to any social relationships at all, to any connection at all. But it's all these other things. Oh, it's the person it's the dog that rushed us off leash, and now my dog's like this, and that's why. That may be true, but that happened. And now, what are we going to do about it? The inability to predict what's going to happen next is playing a bigger part in our dog's anxiety than we think. Today, we take a look at the problem with an inconsistent schedule. Jamila is a young woman in her 20s living in Charleston. Just having finished college, she decided that it was time for her to rescue a dog. At first, everything was going really well, but Jamila's life began to change. First, her new job decided that it would be better for her to work remotely from home. Then, Jamila met a wonderful young woman that she fell in love with and began a relationship with. She started to notice that her beloved dog, Kofi, was showing signs of serious anxiety around the house. He started becoming noticeably upset around the times that Jamila would get ready to leave, and when she was gone, he began to howl in his crate. Her landlord threatened to evict her if the problem continued. Because Jamila's dog Kofi couldn't predict what was coming up in their new schedule, and he was spending larger amounts of time with his mom, followed by absences that he, again, could not predict, he began to experience separation anxiety. As long as somebody else he knew was with him, he didn't have these problems, which would lead more towards thinking separation anxiety than isolation anxiety. To learn more about separation anxiety, please check out my podcast, Unpacked, with my co-host Madison Simpson. Episodes 2 and 10 cover separation anxiety with clients Christina and Penelope. Jamila decided to reach out for help, and what she learned was that the inconsistent schedule wasn't providing any type of expectation for Kofi, and without expectation of what was going to happen, his anxiety increased and increased. After COVID, the world changed for us all. Many people began working remotely and seeing that as a viable way to get their work done during the day. What they didn't see coming was the effect it would have on our dogs. Okay, Jamila and Kofi. So there's a couple things in there. I talked at the end about, close to the end, about the podcast, episodes 2 and 10. If you just want to hear an in-depth kind of lecture feature on separation anxiety, including an actual case, check that out. The other thing was the effects of COVID. and what happens when so many of us now work from home. And I can tell you that I do not recall hearing as much about separation anxiety, as it were, or let's just call it anxiety. I don't recall hearing as much about that until after COVID. And I've been, a dog professional for 25 years now, and in vet med prior to this. So I feel like I had a really good pulse check on that. And it really exacerbated, and I think we all know that. So what would I tell someone like Jamila? Well, first of all, I would ask her to list what her priorities are, because it's important for me to know where things stand with people, and it's not for me to judge what is more important or less important for them, because I know during my life my priorities have shifted and changed, especially as I got older. I guess that's just going to happen. You get older and they change. So I just don't want to make judgments about that. Sometimes people's career may be more important than, hanging out with their friends or something like that. So first I would ask, what are the priorities? I know that you have this relationship. It's really important to you. Did you perceive that you would have this relationship, and do you not imagine a place for Kofi in it? Is there some reason why? The probable answer to that is no, I love my dog. I absolutely want my dog included, and I didn't intend for it to happen that way. That's what most people are going to say. Certainly most of my clients. And so we just acknowledge that we didn't intend for this to happen, that this is where we are, and I can now see that my behaviors have directly and negatively affected my dog. So I have to make an amends for that, and I have to fix that. I can't say that it's all of these other things, because all of those things are symptoms of what I did. For example, we wouldn't say that a person suffering from narcissistic abuse, let's say, had separation anxiety. That would be ridiculous. We would say that they were suffering from a toxic relationship cycle and the things that happen because of that. And they've got all of these symptoms because their needs are not being met. We would not paint it as their problem of separation anxiety, and then there's no label for how that began. We all know how that feels, you guys. And I don't want to participate in that with anybody that I'm in relationship with. Not just my dog, but I'm not here trying to gaslight people that I'm in relationship with, that they have a problem that I have nothing to do with when I'm the reason for the problem. Sometimes I may not be the whole reason, or even maybe I'm not the reason at all. But if I'm their steward, does it matter? Does it matter? Because I'm the only one that can help. Even if it wasn't me, even if it was me, even if it's the only way to get through is to go through the crossing of me. Otherwise they're not going to have any help at all. So once we've established what are the priorities, where did we go wrong, let's take some accountability. Great. Now we can move forward with solution. What are we going to do? But we can't get to that step if we don't acknowledge, because the analogy is that you're going into a house with a leaky roof and you're ripping out all the gross drywall and putting all fresh stuff in and relaying new carpet and doing all, and you never fix the leak in the roof. And you just keep doing all this stuff, and it just keeps coming in through the ceiling. Oh, it's fine. We'll just put new drywall up. That will be fine for a couple days, and then that will be ruined again. And so I'm trying to get us to a place where we're identifying that we need to patch the leaky roof and how we do that. So if you work from home, it's much easier because you can just you don't have all this travel time in between, or you don't have just, I can't because I'm at work. So there's that. I think a lot of the dogs that experience separation anxiety would trend more towards the people that work from home, because it's so much easier to not have a consistent schedule when you work from home. when you work out of the home, you have a consistent schedule generally, and you come home around the same time normally, and you kind of have the same thing going on. There's only so much extra time you have in your home to enjoy your home. So generally, those people are a little bit more consistent. If you don't, and you're like me who works from home, I have to make it a very pointed, concerted effort. I'm very disciplined, so I wouldn't call it effort, but it's very intentional. It's very intentional. So I can't sit down and do work until I've taken care of my animals. That's a no for me. That's a no for me. Because now I know I got people waiting on me. Now I know I got my friends who are in need of basic life needs, who are waiting on me for me to do something that can wait another 2 hours. So I'm very cognizant of that. I meet all their needs in the morning, and then I work. And then I have peace of mind while I'm working that I'm not going to be dealing with animals that haven't even had their basic needs met that day. And it's a way that I know is very uncomfortable to talk about it. I'm very uncomfortable to say that. But I want to encourage you to say each day, have I even met my dog's basic needs? Have I even done that? Because they need to play. They need to be outside. They need to forage a little bit, sniff around, do things like that. And they need to activate their prey drive in some way. In some way, almost every day, you guys. It would be like you going through an entire day not getting to talk to somebody, or you going through an entire day not getting to do your hobby that you love that really gives you a lot of mental health benefits. Or maybe you need, maybe you have a basic need of a particular medicine and you need that every day. And it would be like denying you access to that because somebody forgot or was too busy. That's the reality of what we're doing to them. And if we don't say it, then it never comes to our awareness. And then we don't know. And we just keep, because we're not doing anything maliciously. We're just living. We're just living and we're just trying. So it's not because anybody's bad or because it's just, we have to start saying these things. Science will have you believe in a whole lot of things. And what I mean by science is not studies, not that I'm not. There's money in putting labels on things. There's money in putting labels on things. There's money in telling you that your dog has generalized anxiety. Well, no shit. It's not getting its fucking needs met. Of course it has generalized anxiety. Are they going to create a DSM for dogs? They're going to create a DSM for dogs because they're pulling from the DSM for humans to diagnose dogs with generalized anxiety and putting them on medication. And I have clients whose dogs are on medication, and I feel it's very beneficial for them. They really need it, and it really helps them. But pay attention. This is just life. This is just a human and a dog. It cannot be this fucking complicated. It cannot be so complicated that we need full-blown veterinary behaviorists to help us understand dogs that we've been living with for tens of thousands of years. It's much more about just admitting where my inconsistency, my lack of rising to the occasion is negatively affecting my dog. It's okay. I'm a human being. I'm going to fuck shit up sometimes, especially relationships. And if I can say that and admit that, then every time I deal with it, there's this little bit of pain there. Every time I don't do a good job, there's this little bit of discomfort there. And I'm like, and the next time I do a better job, because I don't want to feel that shit again. That's how you change things. And so if that's you and you are working from home and you're kind of all over the place, just write down a simple schedule. A simple schedule. And for one day, the next day, tomorrow, follow that schedule. And then the next day after that, that one day, follow that schedule. It's not as hard as you think. You're going to find yourself doom scrolling more than you realize. You're going to find yourself getting distracted a lot more than you realize. When you start to pay attention to why you're not able to be consistent, you start to see it. You're wasting time all over the place. I'm wasting time all over the place. Or I'm letting myself get caught up in things that do not serve me or help my life. We all do it. It's a very distracting world. We're all gonna have that happen to us. But the awareness is really, really important, okay? Write your schedule down. It does not have to be by the hour. Jesus, like, it can be morning before work, walk dog, work, take break. Like, make it as simple as possible. That way you can be as successful as possible. Keep it simple, keep it simple. There's a phrase in AA, it's keep it simple, stupid. And the reason that it's that is because alcoholics and addicts have a tendency to believe that they're geniuses at the same time that they also hate themselves. So there's a lot of little things that we learn in there that seem so common sense to other people, but they're not to us. And now that I'm out here in the world, I realize they're not common sense to anyone, because none of us were ever told or taught how to change our behavior patterns and how the ways that we're behaving are affecting maybe other people. I think we're starting to learn that as a species, but I don't think that we recognize it when it comes to animals. Okay, let's go do our skill for the day. Ready, catch. And I want to just tell you that for 3 weeks, my dog let this hit him in the face. Is your foot hurt, sweetie? Just like that. And sometimes if he's not feeling well or he's not into it, he will literally, oh, he caught that one. He just will let it hit him in the face. If that's your dog, please do not read into that they can't get it. Yes, they can. They're a dog. They're catching frisbees in the air. You know what I'm saying? Don't read into it. It takes some dogs a little bit more time to learn it, just the same as some children pick up on reading very quickly, and some, they need a little bit more help and it takes some more time. It doesn't mean that they're never gonna read. It just means that they need more time. Ready? And throw it. That's how you start. Ready? Catch. Ready? Wait till they're catch. Pretty soon once he got it, I just dropped the catch, but you don't have to. Some of them really like it. It's fun. Ready? Catch. Ready? Catch. That's how you start it, though. Okay, let me turn this way. You can see one more time, and then I'll talk a little bit about, oh, sweetheart. Okay, come here. Let's do a lure. Oh, he's so smart. Look at him. Ready. Catch. Good job. Can you catch from there? Ready. You gonna catch it? You're not gonna be able to catch that. Exactly. Find it. Okay, why do I do ready catch? What's the point of that? Well, when I started working really heavily with food several years ago, I would post things on, social media. I'd share about it. And one of the besties, Coco Garcia, that many of you know, Hand Over Rover, she said to me, that's great that you're doing that, but that shit ain't gonna work in the city. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, Jerry, you can't be throwing stuff. We're in the dirty part of Phoenix. Like, you can't just be throwing stuff on the ground. And also, a lot of the dogs, it's not enough body moving for them. It's just not. What do you mean? She's like, I don't know. They need to, move their body. Oh, okay. So I started doing ready catch. And then Denise one day was explaining to me stillness versus movement, stress up versus stress down. And she's like, I have this podcast episode. You should go and listen to it. And that shit changed my life. It changed the way that I looked at dogs forever. It literally was like somebody put a key in the door of arousal and unlocked it for me, and my brain immediately understood, immediately could understand the formulas, so to speak. So what ended up happening was I listened to the podcast. I cannot find that podcast, and I've been on Denise about what happened to that episode, because I would give the link to so many of my clients. I wanted everyone that I knew to listen to this episode because it's so critical. Well, it's gone, and she isn't quite sure what happened there, but I can summarize for you. Dogs, when they feel their nervous system firing, let's just call that stress. Let's just say that, there's good and bad kinds, but let's just say for the point of conversation that we're going to call it stress. Some dogs will stress up. Some dogs will stress down. How can you tell the difference? Dogs or people that stress up, things that stress up, they're going to move around a lot. They're going to want to move. They're going to, you tell me something exciting, high kick, high kick, high kick. I'm a stress up all day long. Milo, he's a stress up. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Jude, my oldest son, stress down. You tell him something and he's gonna, what? Layla, stress down. What? That makes a difference. To give you an example, when dogs are really excited by the door, let's go back to what we were learning yesterday, and they need to move or they need to do something, and everybody's making them sit and wait at the door, you have this fury of energy going on inside of them that's not being addressed. It's not being addressed because their arousal is not being addressed. They're stressing up and it's not being addressed. The same as when a dog is fearful, perhaps stress is down, and it's not being addressed and the leash is pulling them. It matters if your dog needs to move their body or if they need to hold still. So when would an example be of when Enzo needs to move his body? Arousal. Almost all arousal, he needs to move his body unless it's really, really, really high. I have to put him in a sit because it's the only way I have control over him. It's just something that we've practiced a lot. Excuse me. So all arousal, I'm going to deal with by helping him either move his body or helping him bring his arousal down. So I'll either manage it by channeling the motion to something else like a ready catch so he can jump in the air and get the food, or he's going to put his nose down and here comes parasympathetic nervous system because we're doing rest, digest, we're sniffing, we're decompressing. It's just a different way of managing it. And if you use that when you should use ready catch, you're going to struggle. So if you notice that your dog is really amped and needs to move their body, that's where ready catch comes into play. Or your back pedal is fast and you throw the food fast, right? Then your dog is, whoa, 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 okay, yum. And now they got to go and get this food, and it's this real, you see how that's different than find it, and your dog is now in a scat. This is very, very different. So that's why I tell people all the time, I only do like 3 things. I throw food on the ground, I throw food at my dog, and they can eat food from my hand. I have a toy and a leash. It's how you use all of the things. It's knowing the difference between when my dog is stressed down and when they're stressed up, when they need movement, arousal, when they need stillness, fear. If he's afraid, he just can't. He can't, and he needs me to touch him and be close to him. When he's in arousal, touching him makes it worse. Being close to him and touching him, oh my God. You can feel, if I touch him when he's in arousal, I can feel his body. That's why I don't use prong collars. It's not because I think you're abusing your dog. It's because I think that it increases their arousal because of the added stimulation. You have a dog that's in a stress up arousal situation, and you're adding the component of an additional stimulant. That may be the lesser of two evils, right? For turn of phrase, I don't think it's evil. The reality may be that the cost benefit of that is that, but at least the person can walk the dog. So that's a separate issue. But that's why I don't use tools designed to be aversive, because I manage nervous systems. And when you add an additional stimuli, when you add an additional like stimulus to a dog that's already experiencing really high levels of arousal, and that dog is designed to throw into really high levels of arousal and fuck shit up, I'm not adding anything to that. If you guys have seen when Enzo's real amped and I have a leash on him and he won't listen to me, you've seen what I do. I walk up and snake up without any leash pressure, anything at all. And then I turn into him and walk away, because any additional is going to cause that dog to... These are important things to know. The way that your dog deals with stress, what does their body do? What do they need to be what's the optimal thing in that situation that would give you success? And generally, the answer is managing their nervous system. Because if you do that, the behaviors that they have at those higher levels of arousal or stress aren't even going to happen. They're just not going to be there.